Someone else lived here. The house was described as full of character, which Nora now knew meant it was old and a bit troublesome. The ceilings were high, the radiators made noise. In the kitchen, a door led to a narrow staircase she avoided because the light bulb at the top was out and she hadn't replaced it yet. The garden was overgrown, as if the last tenant liked things wild and left that behind when they moved. She moved in at the end of October, arriving at dusk. The days were already short, and by 5 o'clock the street was quiet. She brought a fold-out table, her laptop, and 2 boxes of books, promising herself she'd unpack them once she settled in. She was 31 and had just ended a 3-year relationship, leaving a flat she couldn't afford on her own. The new place was 30 minutes from her office, and the rent was low enough to feel like a gift. She told her friend Cassie she needed some quiet. What she didn't admit was that the quiet felt more like being exposed than peaceful. For most of her adult life, she had shaped herself around others to avoid being alone with it. The first thing she noticed after a few ordinary weeks was the cup. It was a navy blue ceramic mug, chipped a little at the handle. She had left it on the right side of the kitchen sink before going to work on the Wednesday of her second week. She usually left it there. She made coffee in the morning, rinsed the mug, and set it on the right. She remembered this only because her routine had been interrupted. When she came home that evening, the mug was on the left. She paused in the kitchen doorway, staring at the mug. Then she walked over, picked it up, filled it with tap water, and drank while standing at the sink. She was tired. She'd spent the day in a long meeting about problems in a planning report, ate lunch at her desk, and drove home in the dark through heavy rain. Maybe she had put the mug on the left. It was possible. Still, the thought lingered longer than she expected. She put it back on the right side before she went to bed, and she did not think about it again for 3 days. There were things about the house she was still learning. The back door's lock needed a certain grip, firm and slightly angled, or the key would just turn without catching. The third-floor window in her study didn't close all the way. On windy nights, a low whistle came through, so she started sleeping with a pillow over her ear. The pantry off the kitchen had a smell she couldn't place. Not mold, not damp, not rot. It was older than those, reminding her of aged fabric and closed rooms. She mentioned it once to the letting agent, a young man named Paul, who included the phrase "going forward" in every paragraph of his emails. He said the pantry had been used for dry storage for many years and suggested she leave a box of bicarbonate of soda on the shelf. She did this. The smell remained. By her third week, she found the mattress. It was in the cellar, a place she rarely visited. The washing machine and fuse box were there, but nothing else she needed. She went down to reset a tripped circuit after a storm, and as she swept her phone's flashlight around the low-ceilinged room to check for flooding, she saw it behind the boiler. A thin, old mattress wedged between the boiler and the stone wall. A gray blanket was folded on top. She stood very still for a moment, the flashlight balanced in her hand. The mattress wasn't hers. When she first saw the property, she had checked the cellar and was pretty sure there had been nothing behind the boiler. The agent had moved quickly through the house, and the cellar visit was brief. She had mostly been thinking about whether the washing machine was a good brand and if there would be space for a tumble dryer someday. She told herself the last tenant must have left it. The house had been empty for 6 weeks before she moved in, so it was possible something was missed. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that the house kept things even after people left. She came back upstairs, locked the cellar door, and stood in the kitchen for a little while with her arms folded. Then she poured herself a glass of wine, texted Cassie about a completely different subject, and did not go back to the cellar for 5 days. A week later, in her 4th week, the smell in the pantry changed. Before, the smell was just stale and in the background. Now it was different. It seemed human, like how a room still holds the trace of someone after they leave, until the air clears. Like the inside of a coat or a sleeping bag that's been used and rolled up. She opened all 4 pantry shelves, looking in search of something that might explain it. A disregarded piece of food, something spilt and dried. The shelves were bare except for her own tins, her pasta and lentils, and the bicarbonate of soda in its small yellow box. She got down on her hands and knees with a torch and checked the back of the lowest shelf, where the plaster met the floor, thinking there might be a dead mouse or a crack letting in something from outside. What she found was a small pile of things pushed into the far corner. A pair of woolen socks, rolled together the way some people roll socks, with one tucked inside the other. A folded piece of paper. A blue plastic cigarette lighter. She did not touch them. She sat back on her heels and looked at them for a long time. The socks were dark gray and worn at the heel. The paper had been folded twice. The lighter was the cheap kind sold at petrol stations, the kind you buy because it costs less than £1 and throw away when it's empty. She took several photographs with her phone. Then she closed the pantry door and sat at the kitchen table. She thought about the mug, the mattress, and the blanket. She remembered the nights she woke up at 2 or 3 in the morning, not because of dreams or the wind, but because of something she couldn't name. It was a kind of alertness, her body reacting for no clear reason. She would lie there, counting the sounds of the house, the radiator, the pipes, the creak of a joist. She told herself it was nothing and went back to sleep. Now, those moments read less like nerves and more like warnings she hadn't noticed. She thought about what she had not heard on those nights. She thought, what if there was something to hear and I was listening wrong? The following morning, she called the letting agent before she went to work. Paul was busy with viewings until 11, but said he would address her concerns soon. She explained, more patiently than she believed, that she had found personal items in a cupboard that weren't hers, things that seemed recent, not forgotten, and that she was also worried about the cellar. She wanted someone to come to the property, and she wanted it to happen today. Paul said he could send someone on Thursday. She said she would prefer today. He said that, given the circumstances, he could perhaps arrange a visit before the close of business. She said, I want it on record that I have made this call. I want you to note that. He said he would note it. She did not go to work that day. Instead, she walked through the house slowly and methodically, as if tracing the shape of what had changed since the afternoon she first picked up the keys. This time, she was not simply checking for faults. She was looking for proof that she was not imagining things. She started at the top. The 3rd floor had her study, a small bathroom, and a storage room. She had been in all 3 rooms before, but not looked at them as closely as she did now. She moved boxes in the storage room and found nothing. She checked the study, the back of the wardrobe where her winter coat hung, and the crawl space above the bathroom she hadn't noticed before because the hatch was painted the same color as the ceiling and she'd never looked up. She had had her bedroom, another bathroom, and a 2nd bedroom she was using for nothing in particular. She checked under the spare bed, stored there by the previous tenant and not yet moved, and found dust and a dropped earring that was not hers. Then the 1st floor, with its shut doors and ordinary rooms. Then the cellar, in which the air appeared heavier as she went down. She stood near the top of the cellar stairs, hand on the door, and took a breath. The door was still locked. She had locked it herself 5 days ago, and the key was on her key ring. She turned the key and went down. The boiler ticked gently. The washing machine, still running from that morning, vibrated softly. The smell was a bit different from last time. Not a big change, but the human scent she'd noticed in the pantry seemed to be here too, faint and in the background. She went directly to the gap behind the boiler. The mattress was still there. The gray blanket was still there. But the blanket had been moved since then. She had not moved it. She had not touched anything in this room since the night of the power. She hadn't moved it. She hadn't touched anything in this room since the night of the power surge. The blanket had been folded on top of the mattress. She remembered the corners lined up. Now it was pushed aside, bunched up the way a blanket looks when someone has slept under it and left quickly. She looked at it and immediately knew someone had been there after her, and understood that the house had been occupied in ways no one had told her about. Then she went back upstairs and she called the police. The officer who arrived was a woman in her 40s named Pharaoh, with a careful, unreadable face. She didn't say Nora was overreacting. She didn't suggest the blanket had moved on its own, or that the socks were left by a tradesman years ago. She listened, asked specific questions about dates and times, took photos of the items in the pantry and the mattress and blanket in the cellar, and walked through the house in a thorough way that Nora found both reassuring and unsettling. In the kitchen pantry, Pharaoh crouched with her torch angled at the far corner for a long time before she spoke. "These have been here recently," she said. It was not a question. "The smell is what told me." Pharaoh nodded. She rose and in one smooth motion crouched again slightly differently and said, "There's a gap here, at the back of the shelf, behind the wall panel." Nora leaned forward and looked. The lowest shelf of the pantry was built against a wall. Nora leaned forward and looked. The lowest pantry shelf was built against an inside wall, and where the shelf met the wall at the back, the wooden panel wasn't flush. It stuck out a millimeter or two along the lower edge, as if the nails had loosened, as if it had been opened and closed. Ugly, 40 centimeters deep, running the full width of the pantry wall. It smelled strongly of the same human warmth which had drawn Nora's attention in the first place. Inside it, the torch beam picked out a rolled jacket, dark green, compressed small, an unopened packet of crackers, a water bottle, half full, a phone charger coiled neatly in a freezer bag, and at the back, a small notebook, wire-bound, its cover softened. Nora's hand went to her mouth. "Don't touch anything," Pharaoh said gently. What emerged over the following days, through the investigation that Pharaoh's notes initiated and that a detective constable named Bryson subsequently managed, was this. The house was rented out quickly after the previous tenant, a retired man known as Gerald, 67, died suddenly in early summer. The property went through an estate, then back to the landlord, and then onto the rental market. During the 6 weeks it sat empty, a man who knew Gerald, just barely, through someone at a community center where Gerald volunteered, started using the house as a shelter. His name was Marcus. He was 38 and had been sleeping rough on and off for almost 2 years. He knew about the empty house because he had helped Gerald in the garden twice the previous spring in exchange for meals. He had a key because Gerald, who was trusting in the way some elderly people are, had left a spare under a stone near the back gate for a plumber who never came. Marcus saw where it was hidden. There in his way, in August. He had the mattress and the blanket, both taken from a skip, both carried in after dark. He slept in the cellar because it was warm and internal and had no windows onto the street. He used the pantry as a kind of secondary space, somewhere drier than the cellar, to keep things he wanted to keep. He was careful. He ate very little and replaced what he took. He moved the mug by accident and spent an anxious hour wondering if he had given himself away. When Nora moved in at the end of October, he had not left. He had waited, believing she would find him immediately, that first day, that first week. When she did not, he waited, thinking she would find him right away, that first day or week. When she didn't, he stayed. He started moving around only at night. He learned her routine. She woke at 6:40, left by 8, and came home between 6 and 7, and used the house while she was gone. He was careful not to leave traces. He was less careful with the blanket, once oversleeping when her car wouldn't start, and she spent 40 extra minutes in the kitchen waiting for a mechanic. He could hear her through the floor and didn't leave the cellar until she was gone. In a diary, short entries, notes about the weather, about food, about small thoughts. There were entries about Nora. They were not threatening. They were, Bryson said with some care, more like the notes of a person who was trying very hard not to exist in the same space as another person, and who felt, alongside the fear of discovery, a complicated grief about what that necessity meant. He had been apprehended at a shelter in the city 3 days after Nora called the police. He was charged with aggravated trespass and handling of property that was not his. He did not resist. He told the custody officers, with some apparent sincerity, that he was sorry for frightening her. Nora left the house at the end of the month. She still had 6 weeks left on her lease, but the landlord, now cautious and following legal advice, didn't object to her leaving early. She stayed with Cassie for a while. Cassie had a sofa that turned into a bed and was good at not asking about things Nora wasn't ready to talk about. They ate takeaway curry on Thursdays and watched movies they'd both seen before. Cassie made coffee on the stove instead of using the machine, since Nora couldn't be in the same room as it anymore, though she didn't try to explain why. She moved to a new flat in late November. It was on the 3rd floor of a modern building with a fob entry system. The windows were sealed. The heating had a single, easy-to-use dial. There was no cellar. She had changed, though it was hard to say exactly how. It wasn't the dramatic change of someone who had survived something terrible. Nothing truly terrible had happened, or not quite. What happened was subtler and maybe more lasting. She learned that feeling alone in a place isn't the same as actually being alone. The feeling and the fact could exist together for weeks without meeting. Someone could live inside their own assumptions and never think to check behind the wall panel, never think to look for what was hidden. She thought about this sometimes, when she woke in the night in the new flat. The ordinary sometimes, she thought about this when she woke up at night in the new flat. She listened to the usual sounds of the building, the lift, the plumbing, someone's television upstairs. These were sounds with clear explanations. She lay still, listening and naming each one, like someone learning the language of a new place. It of judgment, that she had done this and would probably continue to do it for a long time. She learned to leave the light on in the hallway. What she found harder to explain, to Cassie, to the friend who asked directly, or to herself on nights when she tried to think it through calmly, was this. What frightened her most wasn't Marcus. It wasn't the idea of him in the cellar while she slept above, or the socks in the pantry, or the moved mug, or the blanket in its forensic bag. What frightened her most was the notebook. Not what was in it. She would never know what it was. It wasn't what was in the notebook. She would never really know that. What frightened her was that it existed at all. The careful, private act of writing it. The idea that while she was learning the house, its sounds, its habits, and the way the 3rd floor window complained, someone else was doing the same. He was mapping her, just as she mapped the rooms. Noting her, as she noted the pipes, the districtory genera set of observations. that the house she had believed she was alone in had been, all that time, a shared text.